Hi everyone, welcome back. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name's Jackson. This is what happens when love starts to look a lot like control. I worked my butt off for years, saved every extra dollar to buy a house. When the papers were signed, my girlfriend at the time looked me in the eye and said, "So when are you adding me to the deed?" And when I didn't agree to that, her parents got involved. And she went behind my back and talked to a lawyer to see if she could find a way to claim a piece of the house anyway. Things got deeper, and I decided to do something she was never expecting. I'm going to tell you everything that happened. Growing up, I remember sitting in the back seat of a beat-up sedan while my parents argued quietly in the front. The boxes were piled around me again. We were moving. Again. That was the fourth time in 2 years. Every time the rent went up, we had to pack up and leave. Different schools. New neighborhoods. Leaving friends behind just when I started to feel comfortable. It made me feel like nothing in life was solid. We were always at the mercy of someone else's decisions. One day, I asked my dad, plain and simple, "Why don't we just buy a house so we don't have to keep moving?" He looked at me, sighed, and told me the truth. "Owning a home just isn't in the cards for us, buddy," he said. And I could see in his eyes how much it hurt him to admit that. My parents had bad credit, no savings, and jobs that barely paid the bills. That moment stuck with me. I didn't really understand credit or income levels back then, but I understood what it meant to feel powerless. And right then and there, I made a silent promise to myself. I was going to own a home one day. I didn't care how long it took or what I had to give up. I just knew I never wanted to live chasing stability and never catching it again. While other kids I grew up with dreamed about fancy cars, designer clothes, or traveling the world, I had tunnel vision. I didn't care about the latest sneakers or partying every weekend. I got my first job at 16, bagging groceries, and I started saving. I tracked every dollar. I took extra shifts. I skipped vacations, said no to eating out, and passed on buying things I wanted in the moment, just so I could put more away for the long term. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was trying to build something no one could take away from me. That's the kind of mindset I carried into adulthood. I worked hard, paid my bills on time, kept my credit clean, and kept stacking money. I watched friends finance brand new cars they couldn't really afford while I kept driving my old Civic. They'd laugh sometimes, ask me why I was so tight with money. But I didn't mind. Because every time I heard someone say they had to move again because their landlord raised the rent, I remembered my childhood, and I remembered my goal. Homeownership wasn't just a status symbol to me. It was security. It was freedom. It was a promise I made to a scared little boy who just wanted to stop unpacking his life every 6 months. I met Valerie at a time when I was just starting to find my footing in the professional world. I had landed an entry-level job that didn't pay much, but it had promise. I was in that early phase of adulthood where you're juggling responsibilities, chasing stability, and trying to figure out who you are. Valerie walked into my life with this grounded energy that pulled me in. It didn't take long for us to start talking about the future. From the beginning, I was honest with her about my goals of owning a home before I got married. I watched my parents move from one rental to another every couple of years, and I told Valerie that I didn't want to keep moving around like that for my future family. She supported the idea with genuine enthusiasm. She told me she respected how thoughtful I was about the future, how she admired that I wasn't just chasing quick wins, but thinking long-term. She said she'd be patient, that she was in it with me, and that building something slow and solid was better than rushing into something half-formed. After a year of dating, we moved in together. It wasn't perfect, but we were aligned. At that stage, everything seemed simple. She respected my goals, I respected her patience, and I believed we were laying the foundation for something long-term. At my corporate job, I pushed hard. I stayed late when no one asked me to. I volunteered for difficult projects that no one wanted. I studied at night to build the skills that would land me promotions, and eventually they did. Slowly, my paycheck grew. But I never let lifestyle creep catch up with me. At home, I took on freelance projects. I'd turn down dinner plans with friends or choose another weekend of work over a quick getaway. This wasn't forever. It was a sacrifice for something that would last. After 3 years of grinding, I finally hit the number I had in mind. Enough for a sizable down payment that would reduce my mortgage to something manageable and give me the peace of mind I had always wanted. I applied for a loan on my own and was approved. When I got the call from the bank confirming the mortgage approval, I remembered just standing still for a moment. I'd done it. All those nights, the exhaustion, the sacrifices, it had actually paid off. I called my parents first. My dad, who'd never owned a house himself, got quiet for a second, then just said, "I'm proud of you, son." My mom got emotional. She told me I was building a life she never had the chance to. That moment, for me, meant everything. That evening, I told Valerie about the loan approval. I thought she would be just as thrilled. I expected the same support she had given me at the start, something to match the weight of the moment. Instead, the first thing out of her mouth was, "So, when are you adding me to the deed?" I didn't answer at first. I needed a second to process. I told her I hadn't planned to add anyone to the deed. She hadn't contributed financially. This wasn't something we did together. It was something I did. Her face changed the moment I said that. She got defensive, told me it wasn't about money. It was about security, about commitment, about the life we were supposedly building together. She said if we were going to get married one day, then what was mine should be hers too. That if she was going to live in the house and treat it like her home, she deserved to be on the deed. I tried to stay calm. I told her that planning a future together was one thing, but ownership wasn't something to be handed out just because of intentions. You build a life together by contributing together. That doesn't mean putting your name on something you didn't help pay for. She didn't like hearing that. She accused me of being selfish, of not seeing her as an equal. She said things like, "So what, you're just going to throw this in my face every time we fight? That it's your house and I'm just a guest?" I told her that wasn't what I meant at all. But from her reaction, I realized that she didn't just want to live there. She wanted control. And that wasn't something I could just give without contribution, and especially not because of pressure. The conversation turned into a full-blown argument. She grabbed her bag, told me she was going to stay at her parents' place for a while, and slammed the door behind her. Later that night, I called her to make sure she was safe. She didn't pick up the first time, but she did call back. She said she was fine, staying with her mom, and that we could talk later. I hung up thinking maybe she'd calm down. Maybe she'd realize this wasn't about control or exclusion. I thought we'd talk it through the next day. But I had no idea this wasn't the end of the issue. It was just the beginning. The next evening, I got a call I wasn't expecting, but somehow I wasn't surprised. It was Valerie's parents. Her father's voice came through the speaker, thick with disapproval. He didn't ask how I was doing or congratulate me on buying my first home. No, he jumped straight into it, said, "Back in our day, a real man made sure his woman was protected." He thought he was schooling me on what being a man meant. But I heard the message between the lines. He was implying that by not putting Valerie on the deed, I was failing her. Before I could even respond, her mother chimed in. She said I was being selfish, that I was greedy. She accused me of planning a life without Valerie, of stringing her along with no intention of giving her security. It felt like I was on trial. I let them speak without interrupting. And when it was finally my turn, I told them calmly, "I love your daughter, but I can't sign over part of something she didn't help me build. I'm not doing this out of spite. I just believe ownership has to come with contribution. That's how I was raised." There was silence as they realized I wasn't going to be guilted into giving in. The call ended without any resolution. A few days later, Valerie came back home. She acted like nothing had happened. I didn't bring it up either. I didn't see the point in rehashing what was already clear. While she unpacked and settled back in, I quietly kept moving forward, finalizing the house paperwork behind the scenes, ensuring everything came out fine. We continued living under the same roof, but something had shifted. There was a quiet distance between us, not because I wanted it, but because trust had taken a hit. Weeks later, while I was still waiting to receive the keys to the new house, I came home early from work one day. I wasn't feeling well. I had this pounding headache that made it hard to focus. I figured I'd try to rest for a bit and maybe catch up on some work from home instead of pushing through at the office. I dropped my bag by the door, grabbed a glass of water, and sat down at the shared computer Valerie and I both use at home. I just needed to send a couple of emails and close out some tasks for the day. That's when I noticed her Gmail account was still open. She must have forgotten to log out. Normally, I would have closed it right away, no questions asked. But there was an email sitting right at the top, bolded and unread, from a law firm I recognized. The subject line read, Property Rights Inquiry. I hesitated, but curiosity took over, and I clicked it. It was from earlier that morning. Valerie had reached out to this firm asking some very specific questions. She wrote, "If I've been living here for a few months, does that make me entitled to anything? And what if I can prove we were planning to build a life together? Can I claim part of the property?" She even mentioned our conversations about the future, how we talked about marriage one day, maybe kids. She was trying to see if she could use those plans to make a legal claim on a house she hadn't put a single dollar into. I just sat there, stunned. It wasn't her just asking questions out of curiosity. This was a calculated move. She was looking for a legal back door into something I worked years to build. And the worst part? She was doing it while acting like everything was fine between us, and she had my back. That night, she came home, kissed me on the cheek, and asked how my day was. Meanwhile, I was sitting there knowing full well what she'd done that morning. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. I didn't know what to say without showing just how deeply that cut went. So I stayed quiet. I told her I still wasn't feeling well and went to bed early, but something inside me changed that day. A switch was flipped. What used to feel like a partnership suddenly felt like a setup. And once you see someone's real intentions like that, you can't unsee it. After receiving the keys to the new house, it should have been a proud, fulfilling memory, but instead of celebrating, I felt the urgency of unfinished business tugging at my peace. Valerie was away visiting her sister for the weekend, and I knew this would be my only chance to act without unnecessary confrontation. The very next morning, I contacted a lawyer of my own. I laid it all out. My lawyer confirmed what I already suspected. She had no legal rights to the house. But that didn't mean I could afford to be careless. He advised me to take measured, documented steps, clean, respectful, and above all, firm. That's exactly what I did. I changed the locks to the old house. Then I walked through the house, gathering every single thing of Valerie's. I packed everything into boxes, labeled them clearly, and left them stacked by the front door. Clothes, toiletries, shoes, books. Once everything was packed, I sat down, took a breath, and messaged her, "Your things are boxed up. You can pick them up anytime this week. But you will not be setting foot in this house again." It didn't take long for my phone to light up, and then I picked up. She went straight into a tirade, loud, emotional, aggressive. She called me cold, petty, and disloyal, accused me of blindsiding her, of betraying the relationship. She talked like I had stolen something from her. I let her talk. When she paused to catch her breath, I spoke as calmly as I could. "Valerie, your things are safe and ready for pickup." She didn't take it well. The insults poured in. She called me heartless, a fraud, even a coward. But I wasn't moved. I ended the call with a quiet, "Take care of yourself." I moved into my new house weeks later. There was no one second-guessing my decisions, no raised voices trying to guilt me into handing over something I worked years to earn. Just me and the home I bought. Sure, Valerie probably sees me as the villain now. I've heard from mutual friends that she's been telling people I blindsided her or kicked her out with nothing. But I've stopped trying to fix that image in other people's heads. If protecting my peace and my future makes me the bad guy in someone else's story, so be it. I know the truth, and I know the difference between love and entitlement. One builds with you. The other waits for you to build so they can lay claim to it. I didn't get here overnight. There were nights I stayed up crunching numbers, wondering if I'd ever afford this place. I didn't have a backup plan or someone else funding the dream. It was all me. And walking into this house, knowing it came from my own effort, gives me a kind of satisfaction that no relationship could ever offer. This house isn't just walls and windows. It's a statement. It says I know my worth. It says I don't owe anyone ownership of something they didn't help me build. It says I'm not afraid to start fresh, even if it means doing it alone. And strangely enough, that feels more stable than anything I had before. Just a man, his house, and the freedom to live on his own terms. So yeah, maybe Valerie thought I was supposed to fold. Maybe she thought love was leverage. But in the end, I chose peace over pressure. And let me tell you, peace wins every single time.